So the next speaker is Professor Jack Jiang from York University in Canada. So Professor Jack has been working quite extensive in the area of foundation models for the last few years, and he's one of the organizers as well of the Shonen event that just happened earlier this week. So, whatever comes to Professor Jack or Professor Hiro, please, do reach out to them. There's a lot of industrial folks here. It would be nice for you to kind of give some of the input, especially on the sweet book work. Okay, yeah, go ahead, please, Jack.
All right, so thanks everyone. So today I'm going to talk about AOS standardization. So standardization is basically a topic I think many industry folks here are familiar with, especially for some of the application domains, but maybe not so much for some of the academic researchers. But from my experience, I think that would be an interesting area to get into if you want to strive for another type of impact, especially for your research work. Okay, so in short, these kind of international standards provide guidelines that give out technical specifications for certain goods, services, and processes. And these standards establishes consistent protocols that can be usually understood and adopted. Therefore, international standards are quite essential because it enables reliability, interoperability, trustworthiness, as well as safety. So here is a motivation example in terms of why we need to have such kind of international standard. So Mars Climate Orbiter exploded because it lacks one of these kind of software interface specification standard. So one component was developed by NASA. It was specified all their unit in terms of SI units. Another component was developed by Lockheed Martin, which uses US unit to specify all their calculation. And then because of this incompatibility, it resulted in error in their total impulse calculation and ultimately result in the explosion of the Mars orbiter and cost them around $551 million. Okay? So I hope it kind of motivates you in terms of why we need to have such kind of international standard. And then in the rest of the talk, I'm going to give 3 examples in terms of potential areas where we can work on the standards in the area of AIware. But certainly there will be more. So the first one is our experience in terms of involved and creating this AI-BOM standard through this SPDX profiles. So it started with one of these research works. So we're looking at the data set licenses for a bunch of these open source data sets. So we looked into these data set licenses as well as its subcomponents data set licenses, as well as some of these individual data elements data set licenses. So in particular, we focus on the rights and obligations of these data set licenses, and we document them and we analyze them for consistency and agreement. So it turns out, some of these even very popular open source data set license like CIFAR 10, MS COCO, they have legal risks if we want to use them in a commercial context. So therefore, we realize, it is very important to document these kind of rights and obligation details for the dataset licenses, as well as its derivative, in this case, the trained dataset models. Okay? So one potential area where we can create such kind of a documentation standard is by creating the extension for this SPDX profiles. So this is how the process goes. So one of our collaborators in this area, Gopi, unfortunately he's not here, but he's the one who mainly kind of drive this work. So Gopi basically approached the SPDX standard groups, who is part of the Linux Foundation, expressed the intent to create this AI-BOM standard. Then roughly 2 months later, in March 2022, the SPDX basically create this working group to investigate this AI-BOM standards. And then roughly a month later, various kind of industrial representatives from Google, Amazon, IBM, Microsoft, SAP, as well as Huawei, they kind of join this working group. They meet regularly to discuss about, what kind of fields, what kind of detail we should put into this particular AI-BOM standards, okay? And in July 2022, roughly, the first draft of this AI-BOM standard was created, and subsequently such a detail is presented as well as discussed in various kind of open source summits throughout the year. And in May 2023, we create the release candidate for the AI-BOM specification, which is scheduled to be released as part of the SPDX 3.0 standard. Okay? So in terms of what we can do on top of this current AI-BOM specification, so I'm going to draw analogy as how we're going to make a soup. So think about your AIware product as the soup, which is also a product. So currently we're achieved in terms of documenting what are the ingredients which we put into the soup. So if you see the unsafe ingredient, then you can make an informed choice in terms of whether you are going to consume the soup or not. Okay? However, the issue is the tools, so in this case the pan making the soup, as well as the process, how you cook the soup, are not really documented. And sometimes, if the pan is not clean or the way you cook it did not follow the health standard, that would also, create problems in terms of, whether the soup is safe to be consumed and so on. So such kind of details is planned to be captured and documented as part of the subsequent SPDX 3.1 standards. Okay? So in the subsequent talk, I'm going to give 2 additional examples in the area of FMware. The first one is in particular regarding to the agent. So in the past few years, we see an increasing number of various kind of agent frameworks. And in particular, it is widely believed, even if later on when we reach to the era of AGI, artificial general intelligence, it will be in the form of multi-agents. Okay? But the issue is how can we effectively evaluate the capabilities of these different agents? Okay? So one potentially area we can refer to as an example is in the past, for autonomous vehicles, they have these international standards to characterize, so we can use this to evaluate the levels of driving automation from these different car manufacturers. Okay? So similarly, we can also create various dimensions to evaluate and document the capabilities of these different kind of AIware. So this is our initial attempt. So we create the following dimensions to characterize the capabilities of different AIware across these different generations. So in terms of whether they can make decisions with or without human intervention, how responsive they are with the outside events, can they continuously learn and improve themselves, how easy they can communicate with each other, as well as whether they can take initiatives to kind of improve or speed up the process. So based on that, we start characterizing the characteristics of AIware across these different generations, and in fact, we create a draft for this whole kind of software at these different generations. Okay? So the idea is, given a particular piece of AIware, then we can actually evaluate its capability across these different dimensions, so where we know it's good at, or what are the additional areas which people can continuously work on and improve. Okay? So another area potentially we can kind of push standards for is currently we're in the era of foundation models, and there are different levels where we can build applications and interact with the foundation models. It can go as low as directly interact with the foundation model themselves through APIs, or we can talk them through prompts, or we can talk them through different kind of agents. So some researchers, they basically create this kind of OSI networking layer stack, but representing the abstraction layers when we are interacting among the foundation models. Again, the abstraction layer with the highest on the top and the lowest level of abstraction is showing at the bottom. And then based on that, we now have these different kind of framework. I assume you can recognize a few, like particular things like lane chain, Mega GPT, and so on, where we can actually see their capabilities and abstraction level and so on, so they can make an informed choice when they pick their particular development framework. So related, there's an international standard called IEEE 3394. They're trying to create a natural language communication protocol among these different kind of agents as well. Okay? So in conclusion, I talk about what are the international standards and why do we need international standards, our experience in terms of how we get involved into these standards, and what are the process of getting our idea through these international standards, and 2 example area which we think we can push for international standardization in the area of aiWARE. So thank you very much, and I'm here throughout the venue, so in case you want to talk more about this.
Okay, thank you, Jack.